Welcome to another podcast, and we're coming to you live from Deluxe Mastering Studios in Melbourne, Australia, my hometown, where I love so dearly.
Don't forget Victoria.
Victoria, yeah, and all the postcards and stuff. But anyway, so after a delayed start last time, I'm absolutely thrilled to bits to have my friend and colleague, Mr. Mark Opitz.
Love to be here. Jack the Bear, Tony, whatever you wish to be called today.
Either or. I'll take either, mate. Thanks for coming in, mate. Really appreciate it.
Pleasure.
You actually are you're one of 13 authors that I've read a book of. So for those of you who don't know, this is the book that Mark put out a few years ago now, 3-4 years ago.
Yeah, it came out about 2011 or 12, I think. Yeah. But it turns up regularly in post office bookshelves around Father's Day, and you know,
it took me 6 months to read it. So
it's a very long book.
I finally got there because you know what I thought, because you also took the time. You were very generous. You actually you hand wrote a very lovely scripture in there. You signed it. You sent it in to me, and I thought I'd better read it, because if I ever bump into Mark again, he may ask me a question. I want to make sure that I've got a fucking answer for him.
Right. It appears you're asking the questions.
And speaking of questions, look, any of you guys who may be watching us, normally we do this on Facebook Live or on YouTube right now. Please feel free to drop in some questions for Mark. Mark's been very generous with his time, and so he'll be more than willing to share his wisdom with you, anything pertaining to him, his career. Those of you who are budding producers, wanting to get into the industry, trying to set up your own thing.
Don't ask me.
Mark, again, he's only going to project his subjective version of reality. But,
exactly.
But what Mark doesn't know isn't worth knowing, and what he hasn't done probably isn't worth attempting. So please feel free to ask questions of us. And anyway, so Mark, again, thanks for being here. It's good to see you. So I guess the first thing, a lot of people still ask me this question. They ask about what I do, but I've even been asked before, what's a producer? What does a producer do? So
the best way to describe what a record producer does, it's like saying what someone else does, like a movie director. It's the best way I can describe it. Now, a movie director, when he makes a movie, is presented with a script. I'm presented with a song. The script can be on paper. The song can be on paper. The script could be a show reel for a director. For me, it could be a demo. But essentially, we do the same thing. We take that song or that script, and maybe we'll rewrite that song or that script. If it's a director, you rewrite the script. If I'm the producer, maybe I'll rewrite a bit of the song, saying, well, maybe this bit shouldn't be here and maybe that bit should be there, or rearrange the song, or take in a director's case, so that script's meaningless, to throw that out. We can shorten the story and it won't lose anything. Same with songs, and I'll do that with the songs. And then, just like a movie director who'll shoot the movie, I'll record the movie. They'll use a camera, or we use recording equipment. And but again, like a movie director, you have to be on top of the technical know-how of what's going on, as well as the musical know-how of what's going on, so you can make the right judgments. And if I'm producing, and also you've got to take into account the public you're producing for as well, because the minute you charge the public a ticket to a movie or the price of a record, you have a responsibility to that person who's buying that record, who's given their hard-earned cash to buy that record or buy that movie ticket, to do the best work that you can for that person. You know, that's a good. The work itself is good. It's not slap haphazard stuff. Yeah, it's stuff that you believe in, and in the music and whatever, and you do as good a job as you can, because someone is going to be buying that record. Yeah. Now, if you're doing it for free, knock yourself out. You know, do whatever you like. Yeah. But I do believe that people like me have a responsibility to people. Yeah.
Tell me, before you were saying before on the podcast, you were saying that, you know, back in the day you were chasing bigger records. Now it's about, I just want to make good sounding records. I guess.
Well, when you're young, like in your 20s, of course, you're chasing platinum albums and gold albums. You're chasing, you know, acclaim. You're chasing success, you know, in however success is measured, be it money or in notoriety. Yeah. But as you get older, you know, you move out of that young field of when you're plugged in totally to the music scene and every live act that's going on in your 20s. As you get older, you know, you have kids, you deplug from that, and your tastes in music change, everything changes, to the point now where these days, as far as making music's concerned, I just want to make good music. I'm not really interested in platinum albums and getting another gold album or anything like that. It's I just want to walk away from anything that I do against that we captured that moment well.
Yeah. Do you find now when you work on a record, you work on the records where you feel that you not impose yourself, but you want to bring your vision, or are you happy to just facilitate a process? The band will come to you and say, look, this is what we're going for, and you're just happy to go with that? Or do you find that?
Depends. A lot of the time, if I can see something extra in something, I'll go for that something extra. I'll say, that sounds great, but let's lift it up another notch by doing this, this and this, and or simplify it by making the melody a bit more accessible, or make the song a little bit more accessible in the way it's put together and things like that. There's always that element to it. Every now and again you can, it's not as if you just shut the door and lean up against the door and say, go and do your own thing. Someone's got to be in there with the vetting process and manoeuvring decisions into the right area, making sure that you're getting the right feels, and making sure that the buck's got to stop somewhere.
Yeah,
pretty much.
Yeah. We were saying before that you feel like you have had a bit of a charmed life through what you've done. You've earned your way through it, definitely, but you've probably seen more change than anyone in how many decades of the industry. Mm-hmm. You're still valid, you're still relevant, you're still doing. What do you think has been, what have you had to do to basically adapt and change to still be relevant in the landscape today? Because the records are made differently now. The whole industry is different.
I think, well, that's the thing, you really don't do a lot of. The only thing that I've changed since I started doing stuff in my 20s is not much at all. Really, things have changed around me, but it's the music itself is still music.
Yeah.
And you still like the music. Yes, and I still make music that gets played on Triple J and stuff like that. In 2017, so I've had a pretty good long run at doing stuff, and I still make records around the world in different countries, obviously. But the thing that hasn't changed is people, and will never change, is people will continually make music.
Yeah, and create.
They will continually make music all around the world.
Yeah.
And that's why all those talent shows work, because the kids who were too young to get on last time get on in the next few years, and they've got good voices or whatever.
Yeah.
Like Idol and stuff like that. But music will never die. So, I haven't really had to adjust myself too much. What I do is I keep an eye on all the technical stuff and get involved in it, and I know what all the technical changes and how they all work, but I also surround myself with people who I can now, where in the old days where I would look after all the technical stuff myself as well as the music stuff, because it's the complexities and speed of digital Pro Tools and stuff like that and what you can do. I prefer to work with someone like Colin or Tony or someone like that who knows their
Colin Wynn, Tony Hall, for those of you who don't know who we're talking about. Yeah.
Engineers that can work the way I want to work, and and my engineers have usually worked with me for many years, so they can. I prefer them to use my techniques and things like that.
Are there any? All right, you've done a fuckload of bands. Are there any artists that you still would love to be able to work with today? If you're given the opportunity.
Obviously the real In Excess with Michael being alive, be good, but there are acts, but the thing is, all those, everyone's got older, everyone's changed their values, it's the time to work with them. It's the time that you wanted to work with them, not later on.
Yeah.
Like I've done a few heritage acts like Kiss and stuff like that because they've requested me or whatever.
How did that come about?
Well, they are asking for someone, trying to find someone in Australia who could, 3 or 4 people they could choose between, and they asked Gudinski. He said, no, there's no 3 or 4 people. There's only one person that should be doing the record. Because
that's how we met. I mean, that's how we met. That's when I was started at Sing Sing, and they were doing the MSO surround, and that's where we met. And so, as a younger engineer, it was a bit, a bit starstruck in a way, because obviously I grew up listening to all the records, and so I got to meet this dude. It's interesting, and you see a name often, and then you meet the person behind the name, and it really brings clarity to that adage of character who you are, reputations, what people think you are, and you meet the person behind the record, and it's a really good experience, you know, particularly when the guy that you meet's actually a really cool motherfucker. You know, but that's right. I can thank Kiss for that. That's where I met you over there, and
no, they were great to work with, but because again it was a very professional band, you know, and they knew what they wanted and where they were going and stuff, and they had, and of course they're seemingly unaware of the millions and millions of dollars it takes to create Kiss and keep Kiss on the road, you know.
Yeah.
They rise above all that, and it doesn't really come into play. Even when I met you there over at Sing Sing, after we finished a few weeks there, we went for 3 months to LA and just every day in LA for 50 odd days, you know, working away in the same project.
I mean, it's a different level there, isn't it, Mark? I mean, the way they work and operate in the States.
Well, sort of. It's the same sort of equipment and everything, but what you've got is a competitiveness there is a lot stronger because there's so many people want the gig and so many people want to be able to do things. A bit like we were talking about the learn to earn thing in Australia's at now, where people are getting brought up in the industry. It's hard to find jobs. This is where America was, you know, in the 80s. You know, there were so many people wanting to be record producers and stuff like that. Yeah, a lot of studios. Yeah. But you could be an assistant engineer for 5, 6, 7 years. Yeah. Before you got to get into, you know, being a junior engineer. Yeah. And so it's
and that's what I saw when I just bumming around over there, and I noticed that was the way you intern, you make coffee, you become a tape op, you might become an assistant engineer, and you might become the in-house engineer. And this is like a 8, 9, 10 year, and there was no guarantees of any of that happening. And that's why the mastering thing was really appealing, because no one really knew about it. And I didn't know that you, in fact, started out.
Well,
at mastering as well.
Well, when I got back into the music business from ABC, you know, that I came in, that I was a mastering engineer to start with. I was overqualified at the time because it wasn't the mastering that we did in those days. It was a lathe and through a couple of PV equalizers and maybe compression every now and again, but very straightforward. And basically line up the tones with the equalizers, not on the tape machine, but with the equalizers on the rack. How dumb was that? Yeah. And but I stopped doing that. I just figured out it'd be better to do it from the tape machine than the rack. And so, but that was I'd already been an audio engineer as well over at ABC TV before that. I see Mick Rowe.
Go on, Mick, what was the most defining moment in your life when you said to yourself, that was bloody great?
You know, that's a really good question, because you actually get a few of them. You know, that there's a feeling you get when you know you've broken the back of the beast. Yeah. When you're in the studio, you're working on a song, and you know the song's got something in it, but there gets a point when you're working on it, all of a sudden everything just clicks and falls into place. And you go, that's fucking great. That's bloody great. You know, so it's you get that, and they're the ones you know, and when you're young, oh yeah, that's a hit. Like No Lies, when you were doing that for Noiseworks, you knew that was a hit. Good Times with In Excess Team Funds, no, that's a hit. Yeah. Don't Change, when you're doing that for In Excess, you know that's a hit. You mean all these other songs? What's My Scene? Yeah. You know, you just know at a certain point, that's a hit.
I remember actually once you were telling the story when before this with old Squeak, John Paul Young with Lovers in the Air, and you also it just had that was like almost a happy accident, but you know.
No, well, the way Lovers in the Air was made there was no accident about it. You know,
oh, so there was method in the madness.
Totally, you know, it was a question of we were George Young, Harry Vander, and I, when we used to work as a team, and I was their apprentice at Opitz in the 70s. I remember George 9 o'clock on a Monday morning said, "Okay, what we're doing today? Okay, we got a hit for John in Germany with a song called Standing in the Rain. And yesterday's a hit in South Africa, you know, so yesterday's hero. So we've got to do follows up for a German single for Standing in the Rain, and we've got to do one for South Africa. We'll do the German one first." Yeah. And Standing in the Rain was, "Oh, babe, I saw you standing in the rain. Da 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 da." So George says, "Okay, we'll get out the hi-hat loop for Standing in the Rain." And George gets out his little chord organ where you can play single notes or press a button to play a chord, and starts playing around with this ascending riff. And he yells out to Harry, get the word book out, Harry, yell out some words. And after a while, Harry yells out, "Love is in the air." Yeah, that's good. We'll use that.
Yeah.
And that's it. We started with the original song that had been a hit first, with its rhythm.
Yeah.
And then something in George, an ascending da 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 da. They've been playing around with that bit of "Love is in the air." Yeah. And we started there, and then over the whole day I watched this thing start from this hi-hat expanding out with just the three of us to this bit by 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock that night, and George is on the phone to John Paul Young as he and Harry are writing lyrics saying, "Got a song for you to sing, come in."
Yeah.
And he was there by 10 that night and did 3 or 4 takes, and that was that.
That was it. So when that blew up, did you guys was it a case of we just knew it, or or we?
Yeah. I mean, I was just sitting there watching this happen in front of me, and I was working on it, I was doing stuff, but the way that George and Harry went about it was we've already got a hit with Standing in the Rain, we need another hit. Did we know it was going to be that big a hit? No. But you knew, that sounds like a hit to me. Yeah. It's going to work on radio. I can see that going really well in Australia, but to follow up whatever we had in Australia going at that time, or for John Paul Young.
Yeah. So listen, there's another question from Mick. He's got, what's your favourite piece of studio gear?
Favourite bit of studio gear was probably the console. And it's like, depending on which console. I mean, for years the Solid State Logic console was very good to me, but before that, the Neve consoles at Albert's were good to me. Harrison consoles were good to me. But that's where the sort of, you can, in the mix, you can really make the magic happen with a really good console, particularly the way the SSL consoles were put together for mixing.
Yeah, absolutely. So from Woz Brown, what advice would you give for aspiring audio engineers?
Aspiring audio engineers there's not a lot of jobs out there. You just got to want to do it.
Yeah.
And you just got to find a way of doing it in whichever way you can. And if I was an aspiring audio engineer, I'd want to work at the best available place, wherever audio is being done. So that's the first place that I would go to.
Yeah.
And knock on their door and say, I want to be an audio engineer for you guys.
Yeah.
Or whatever. But I'd be persistent about it.
Yeah.
That's what I did. I mean, when I left ABC and I had a year off, then I decided to get back into it. I made a list of all the recording studios in Sydney.
Yeah.
And the top one was EMI. Yeah. That was a top studio in Sydney in 1974.
Right.
And so I knocked on their door first, and luckily got in as a sort of a tape dubbing engineer first, then mastering engineer, then label manager, then back into a sort of producer's assistant for Richard Lush, and then I went to Albert's after that.
I think it's a different time. There are still some studios around, but now with the technology, it's become more of a cottage industry, and people have some really nice project studios and whatnot. I think what I'm telling kids now is the best way to get your foot in the door is to build your own fucking door to put your own foot through. Basically, meaning you're gonna end up ultimately being a freelance.
Well, you've got to be self-reliant,
and I think that if you can get yourself into a place where you can find some mentoring, a place where you can go and hang out and get to know the people, and make yourself useful.
It's not easy though. I mean, those places. You're absolutely correct, but there are not a lot of these places around where kids can go and get that sort of mentorship who want to do this sort of work, because they're thin on the ground. It's what I was saying before, that's why in the 80s in America it was so competitive, not because they were thin on the ground. There was just so many people trying to compete for the same, top studios.
Yeah.
And that's now the same here, except it's not top studios anymore. There's a couple of studios, but there's TV stations or production companies or, concert front of house guys or people, from radio to whatever. If that's what you want to do in music, it's still there to be done. And it's how bad you want to do it is what it's about.
Do you miss those days, Mark? Do you feel any sort of lament of? I'm not saying you're some kind of decrepit old World War II veteran, but do you feel that today kids are missing out?
I don't think they are. I think that I'd much rather be a 20-year-old today than when I was a 20-year-old.
Yeah.
Because there's so much more available to you, and everything's so instant. And when I was a 20-year-old, I didn't have an iPhone.
Yeah.
You know, when I was a 20-year-old, when the phone rang, someone would say, "I'll get it." You'll never hear that phrase today when someone's mobile phone.
That's true. And black and white TV, mate. And I remember I used to write letters. I used to remember writing letters to engineers in New York, and it would have been I'd be rapt if I got an answer back, if any. But if I got something back within 2 weeks, that to me is that may have been as instant as email back in 1980.
Well, that's right. And the thing is, the great thing about that, though, for me, as a teenager, I grew up with a transistor radio under my pillow.
Yeah.
And that was the lifeline to my dreams.
Yeah.
That was the actual lifeline to my dreams. That went up into heaven somewhere, and I could hear this music coming through.
Yeah.
And that took me away to wherever I wanted to be. Yeah. And just showed me, and the great thing was, because everything wasn't so accessible, you had to use your own imagination to imagine how it looked and felt and sounded as you were listening to it. Yeah. And you used that as well. Whereas today you're told how it looks and sounds by seeing it on vision. So you used your mind more probably when you were listening then.
Yeah, I remember too as a kid too. One of the great experiences as a kid was listening on headphones to stereo imaging and panning. And I remember I never could understand how did that go from here to there. It always used to fascinate me. And I remember, as a young kid asking one engineer, "So how do you do that?" He said, "You see that there? That's a pan control. You just go there and there." And from that moment, it was almost like, when you find out Father Christmas isn't real. It's almost like the magic just was destroyed in that moment for me.
Yeah, but the thing is, but even so, like delays and reverbs and things like that are there's all different colours and EQs and compressions. I got it right into compression, using that as an art form in a lot of different ways.
Yeah, I think genius comes when people go outside the boundaries. They say there's certain rules and certain regulations, but I think it's great to learn them. But it's when you start doing the shit that you're not supposed to do.
That's right. Well, that's what I've always used to do. Like I remember the old doing Cold Chisel at Paradise Studios. I'd record the guitars where the drums were supposed to be recorded. Yeah. I'd record the guitars where the vocals were supposed to be recorded, and just I'd mix it all up just so I could get its own sound.
Yeah. There's a question from Mick here, mate. Is that how important is physical health in your priorities now as a music professional? We did talk about this before. I think it's a great question.
I think that physical health is really important. Not everyone's blessed with great health, and so some people, in fact, who are, say, wheelchair bound, become great musical professionals because they've got the time and the attitude to devote to it.
Yeah.
And yet and with the disability that they may have, it actually gives them a different sensibility towards it and takes them to a higher level.
Yeah.
So there is that side of the physical health. But in general, for me to do what I do and to stay relevant in my own mind, let alone anyone else's mind, physical health is really important. And that's like I do actual physical training a number of times a week, intensely. And I try and eat the right foods because I want to be around to enjoy it. Yeah. You know what I mean?
And you made a good point before where you said it also prepares you for the next opportunity.
Well, that's exactly right. And so when I'm not working, for example, I always make sure I drag my ass off to the gym, because it's a discipline to get yourself out of the door and doing something. So it's and because it's painful, I'm not one of these people who loves going to the gym. I reckon it's bloody hard work and it hurts while you're there, but it pays off at the other side.
Yeah.
So and it also, as you've just reminded me, I've always said it. I keep fit because it keeps me ready for the next opportunity that may come along.
Yeah.
If I'm fit and healthy, I'm ready to go to Paris to work on another album, or Istanbul, or Sydney, or Melbourne, or wherever I'm working, or London, or New York.
Do you think there's something to be said in just aging? Do you think when you're young and you're bulletproof, until your body starts to tell you that, I can't do 3 days of partying, or I can't not sleep for 2 days in a row, and
that's funny because for me with aging, I feel like I'm in my mid-30s maybe. And I'm 65 years of age, which is ridiculous. And I look at that and go, well, hang on, someone's lost count somewhere, because there's no way in the world that I could be that old. It's just impossible.
Yeah.
And it's just I feel 38, but if you say I'm 45, I'll take it.
Yeah.
But But so it's there's everyone says it's aging is in the head, but it's probably more in the genetics and how you look after yourself.
Yeah. I think it's I think there's something to be said about environment. Like when you're around youth, energy.
True. True. Well,
there's got to be some effect
that's where we
physically on you as well.
That's where we both
at a cellular structure. I mean,
it's true because in both your job and my job, we're dealing with people that are younger than us.
Yeah.
And for me, like I'm still doing bands like Bad Dreams and stuff like that, and these guys are in their 20s and stuff like that.
Yeah. So, you did the new Black Oceans album too, didn't you? Just on your Black Oceans album too.
That's right.
Yeah.
But with those guys, you still relate just on a normal level, like you're the same age.
Yeah.
And that's where for me it's been different because I haven't worked with people my age, really.
Yeah.
The only time I ever worked with people my age is when I was first starting off, or they were older than me.
Yeah.
Like Vander and Young and people like that.
Yeah.
But it's always been people that are younger than me.
Yeah, I find it interesting. I deal with your Gen Ys, and a lot of these kids are old enough to be my children, but I don't see them as.
Same. Well, I don't get that. I don't even.
It's weird, but it's just almost feeling
they're just people.
Yeah.
It's people because as I said, I think that I'm still mid-30s.
Yeah.
And it's a freaky when you get to like say 65. Okay, you've got to be kidding! This is impossible. There's no way in the world.
Could you ever, honestly, Mark? Could you see yourself at 65 still working in 1978?
No, not really. Well, your view of 65 in those days is as if some decrepit old hunched over man with a walking cane, and like maybe he's a member of the local bowls club. But where in reality it's nothing like that. You still look through the same eyes you looked through when you were 22 years old.
Yeah.
That's how it is for me.
Yeah.
I mean, I do know a lot of people who I think look older than they are, and other people who are in their 60s who look older than 60.
Yeah.
But as far as I am concerned, I just find it really hard to believe that we've come all this way.
Yeah. Does music still excite you in the same way when you were younger?
Definitely. No, when I was younger, I'd go to concerts like from the Beatles to the Yardbirds, Small Faces, all those great 60s, 70s bands. Yeah. And I was lucky to see in Brisbane, in particularly in the 60s, but music itself, it does, because I'll rediscover stuff like. An album Robert Plant did 5 or 6 years ago. It's just like will blow me out, or because I just haven't got around to listening to it, or and stuff. Yeah, there'd be stuff from the last 20 or 30 years. I still listen to a lot of it, like rediscovering Fleetwood Mac, rediscovering the Mamas and the Papas greatest hits.
Yeah,
how good is that record?
Yeah. Do you remember the first record you listened to?
Yeah,
as a kid. What was the first record you listened to?
Well, not listened to. I remember Hank Williams, like Behind the Green Door, where it was when I was about 3, I think. I remember Elvis Presley being played on the radio when I was a kid. Yeah. But I didn't, then when I was about, 8, 9, my bed used to be next to this big old radiogram, and we'd listen to the Hit Parade on a Sunday night, and I can remember hearing Helen Shapiro back then, Dusty Springfield, the Springfields, not Dusty Springfield, when she was in the Springfields. So. Del Shannon, Gene McDaniels, all these, Patty Duke, all those pre-Beatles acts from America. Yeah. I can remember them very clearly.
Well, the first song I remember listening
Neil Sedaka, people like that.
First song I remember listening to as a kid was "God Only Knows" by the Beach Boys.
Great song.
And that was on my dad's. My dad used to be a collect reel to reel. He was a hi-fi enthusiast, and he used to have a mate of the merchant seaman who come to Singapore. And in Australia, of course, back then was really behind with what was happening with hi-fi. So all this new cutting edge shit.
Get off tape.
Yeah, so I had a copy of Pet, and so it must have been a bootleg because I don't. They didn't do pre-recorded.
Yeah, they
did. They did back then.
We used to be in the 60s. You could buy a lot of places. They did records like lacquers, but they also, a lot of places did tapes. You could buy tapes of
quarter-inch reel,
quarter-inch plastic reel of running at 7.5 inches per second or 3 3/4.
7.5. That's what I remember. Yeah.
And you did. I remember even when I was a kid at 13, in 12, we used to buy little 3 3 1/4 real-size tape recorders.
Yeah.
And we just tape songs off the transistor radio, make up compilations, and even then I had no idea I was going to be doing it.
Yeah.
But turning the tape upside down and playing it back, and go, oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
And I had no concept of, well, this is where I was going when I was 12. So I was going to be doing the same sort of thing many years later.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember actually one thing. The first thing I remember, the first time I think I ever saw an image of you was, it was ARIA Awards. I was watching it, and you won Producer of the Year. And I remember at the end of it, you said, "I want to thank my greatest production, my children."
That's right, yeah.
And I remember I brought that up, and you said, "Oh, I remember you said that." And you said, "Gee, I'll tell you what, you're lucky I had good moral code back then, mate, because all the women in the room just swooned when I said that." You just won all the ladies over that night.
Well, that was what was told to me. I said that night that then my greatest production, which is my first child, which is India, and so that would have been 1980 when that one. Then later on, all these ladies kept coming out saying, "Oh, how lovely! What a nice thing to say," and all that sort of stuff. But no, I was just being honest.
Yeah.
It was, and trying to be realistic.
How do you find being a dad? Like, music industry work is really demanding, whether you're a touring musician, whether it's not 9 to 5, right? It is a lifestyle, and it's very demanding. It takes you away from your family. It takes you away from a lot of things, even though it's something that you love doing. It's a lot of extremes. So as a father, how did you find being a dad during your career and managing that relationship with your kids and stuff?
Well, it all depends on each relationship the relationship you have with the kids, as you say, and how you use the time that you have. And so luckily for me, there were times where I'd be in months at a time abroad in Europe or United States or wherever working. But then I'd come home for a month and a half, and for that month and a half I wasn't working.
Yeah.
And so I would be making the lunches, I'd be taking the kids to school, picking the kids up from school, doing everything with them, taking them to trainings, to soccer, to
all the activities
that they were involved with, and spending time with them at night, and making up stories with them to help put them to sleep, and being and treating them as my friends, and always get down to their level and to speak to them. So, and also obviously when I could, we didn't have mobile phones in the early 80s, so I wouldn't be able to ring every night, but you could, and ringing from Los Angeles to Australia,
$20 a minute or something ridiculous.
It used to be really ridiculous. And so you keep your contact going with them, once a week on that level. But pretty much where I was able to do, which most fathers never get to do when their kids are small, because most fathers, when they have young children, are working as hard as they ever did, and that means they're out of there by 7. They're not home till 6 or 7 in the evening, and then they're buggered,
Yeah.
Where at least with me, I wasn't there for periods while I'm in the studio, but when I was there 24.
It was quality. Those kids got quality time. When you were there, you were 100% there present.
They're still my best friends, so it must have gone okay.
Yeah.
So that's how I look at it.
I think I personally think it's a big struggle. I think.
Of course, it's a struggle.
But I still struggle. I still struggle with it.
It's about what I did know is that, for example, when I was working overseas, I wouldn't I'll just take an extra day off in Hawaii on the way home to chill out. No way.
Yeah.
Once I finished my job, I was that day, everything was squared away. I'd be on a plane that night flying home to my family.
Yeah.
I wouldn't ever if whatever day I had, I'd always get back as no shortcuts. And then when I was home, it was I'd take the kids on, if it was school holidays, take all the kids up to Sanctuary Cove. We just all play in the beach and have fun. But it's that quality time you spend with the kids when you're not working. I really feel for people who have to work so hard that they leave the house at 7 in the morning without saying goodbye to the kids, and when they get home, the kids are doing their homework, and the only time they get to see them is for a short time on the weekend.
Yeah,
it's pretty tough.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Tell me, we know about successes and what you've done. Mick asked before about your certain sort of moments where you went, whatever. Have there been any particular disappointments in your career, or letdowns, or things where you maybe had an expectation for an album to come through for you that you really?
I think so. I think there's always those where.
And when that happened, okay, because I think what I've discovered is that it's not what happens to you, but how you process, how you do it. So how did you deal with your disappointments and those moments when you were in a dip? So
well,
how did you deal with it, and what did you do to get yourself
you
out?
Freak out, basically. Obviously, when if you go for a project and you don't pull it off, that's not too good. I mean, there's a couple of projects that you expected to come your way that haven't come your way, or but the thing is, we're all professionals, and so I've never got to the point. I've always moved on, because if I didn't want to move on, I would have joined a band and been in a band from day one till day dot.
Yeah.
And done or worked with the one company. But the beauty about what I do is I join many different acts. I go from working with solo acts to bands, 2 or 3 albums here, then move on, because hey, I don't want to do a whole 5, 6 album career with the band, because if I did, that means they'd learn nothing from me at all.
Yeah.
It's like 2 albums, 3 albums I like to do with an act. That way you show them, you bring them on the first album, and in the second album you're working with them, they become more, okay, that's how you're doing all that, so you're working with them more. And by the third album they should be doing most of the stuff by themselves without you having to do much except keep a hand on the tiller and steer the ship in the right direction. So and then they should be totally able by their own fourth album to go off and make the record, and you've taught. Hopefully, they take what you've taught on board, and so they can be completely themselves.
Yeah.
So basically, a self-defeating job for me.
Yeah. So okay, you've had a really illustrious career doing A&R, signing bands and whatnot. How do you see the role of A&R today? And what do you think? What do you think makes a good A&R guy in the current climate?
Well, the old A&R person was someone who manufactured stuff, because music used to lead the youth culture revolution. Music does not lead the youth culture revolution anymore.
Right.
There are so many facets, so many points to the youth culture revolution. When I was growing up, music was at the front, was the pointy end of the youth culture revolution. Now there is not just fashion, there's sport, there's gaming, there's so many different parts of youth culture going forward.
Yeah.
So all the values are basically changed, and that's the same with A&R. And so with A&R now, everyone, it's because music tastes have changed. The radio playlists have become very narrow. And now people are only making modern music for one radio station in Australia, Triple J.
Yeah.
It's outrageous. One radio station has that much power. It's outrageous. Before, in the old days with AM, you had 2SM, you had all the
3XY Melbourne,
all the different networks vying,
Fox,
and then early days of FM, everyone was vying each other. Now it's just boiled down because music has just been put so much in the background because of so many other youth cultural activities have joined in the fray that so A&R now is there's not a lot of A&R that goes about, and when you're a person who's A&Ring is basically sourcing talent for major media companies is what an A&R artist and requisition
repertoire.
Artists and repertoire. So they're basically finding songs for artists. That doesn't exist. The artists these days come with their own songs. What A&R people are now looking for are not songs and repertoire, artists and repertoire. What they're looking for is acts that have already got some sort of success going. They've got a healthy live following.
Yeah, they've got the YouTube followers and Facebook.
And they've got all that
sort of shit.
So they know that there's already a base that they can market. If they're selling something to somebody, because it's not like the record industry of old where you'd sell hundreds of thousands of records.
Yeah.
Even though the population's grown, the sales haven't grown with it.
Yeah.
And so you're looking for someone who's got a lot to give themselves, not just in music and talent, but in terms of promotion and self-promotion and stuff like that. So an A&R guy's job now is it's more gone in that way, and then because he's not signing for a major companies. There's no like the big 3 record companies anymore.
Yeah.
Or the big, just like the big 3 4 TV, Channel 9, Channel 7. Channel 8, Channel 2, you make your shows for.
Yeah.
And that was like the record industry, EMI, Warner Brothers, Sony, Polygram, Universal, the big record companies.
Yeah.
Now there's only one really big record company, Universal. Warner's is still in there a bit, and a few others, but they're not making so much records, but they're making soundtracks for movies, for gaming, for all sorts
and
of
they've got
things.
the TV shows,
And their
obviously.
TV shows
Yeah.
is where the already-made artist comes from, so it's already got self-promotion, as I was talking about before.
Yeah.
You need to have that. So the A&Ring is it's much more. It's a much different thing these days. It's not done with heart feel. You know, in the old days, for instance, to get a record played, you used to drive all around the country and stop at every radio station and sell it. These days, you don't. You know, it's some network owns it, so they'll look at it, and so there's none of that romance in that kind of romance. And you know, in those hits that could be broken in, you know, like Adelaide just got onto this one song, and it turns out to be a massive song. Adelaide's the only people playing Coldplay,
Right.
You know, and or Yellow or that, something like that.
Yeah.
And then it breaks from Adelaide, Sydney. Here's, oh, we like that. And then they'll start playing it. Then Brisbane will like it, and they'll start playing it. That's how it used to be. People would break their own music, but now it's all so networked.
Yeah. My memory of old A&R guys, of old school A&R, was also they were, you know, they'd work for a label and they'd be looking to sign a particular band or a particular genre, but they were music people. They would love they really knew their shit musically, and they also were really well versed in the studio and knew about recording.
I think they loved. I think what they loved is records, not so much music. They love records, and that might sound like it's the same thing, but it's not. It's like books and film. Yeah, you know, you like a book and you like a film, and that's what records are like. They're like little movies. They always, that's what I've always thought them as. And so I think A&R people, they just love certain albums, you know, certain records that they'd hear on the radio, but they were records. And then you would fall in love with go and see the band live because of the record you were hearing. Whereas now you go and buy the record because you've seen the band live. It's a reverse. In the old days, you hear the record first, then you went and saw the band. Now you see the band first, then you buy the record at the merchandising store. It's sort of a 180-degree flip. It's quite interesting.
So recently, this year, you were made a fellow at the Australian National University, and which was a very prestigious thing. How did that come about? What does it involve? And
well, I'm a visiting fellow at ANU.
What exactly is a fellow?
A fellow basically is
other than a bloke.
No, well, a fellow, it can be a girl. It's when they at universities, they have different people. They invite people to come and teach. Basically, a fellow is basically a lecturer, and most visiting fellows are either professors or doctors who from other universities, not medical doctors, but have doctorates, and who will come to another university to deliver lectures on their specialised subject. And in the School of Music at ANU, Professor Sam Bennett and Professor Ken Lample, who's head of the school, decided that I'd be one's an American, one's an English woman. Decided none of them were Australian. Decided I'd be a perfect fit to be good. I'd come in and be a visiting fellow at the School of Music and help them take the School of Music into forward into the future. You know.
So what do you teach? So as you go there and you're teaching these kids, who are these kids that you're teaching, and what are the things that you go through?
Basically, what I do lectures on there is on way of preserving your music to, you know, if you want to record your music, obviously a lot of production techniques. I talk about arrangements. I talk about the physical act of the recording of your music, and you deal with a lot of music students because now they all have music projects that they have to fulfill, and they all have to be recorded. They all have to do them properly. It could be an intimate thing or it could be a large scale thing. But where in the old days, you know, music was always taught that was just going to be played live, and and universities the world over have always taught in that fashion. They've never taught about the fact that, hang on, it actually goes through media. It's not just, yes, it's played live, but media is involved too. How do we get the best out of media in involving it? So that's pretty much where I come into it.
Yeah. How do you find the difference now? I mean, you've worked in the corporate arena for many, many years, and now you've entered the world of academia. How different is it? We're dealing in the academic world as opposed to the corporate world.
It's very similar to the corporate, the real corporate world, when you're dealing with, you know, like a Warner Brothers or working for EMI. they're just like ANU or Sydney University, you know, or Melbourne University, AMI's, you know, EMI's, Sydney University, because the structure inside is invariably the same. There's a boss, there's a chain of command,
bureaucracy, there's a protocol,
politics,
all
that sort of stuff that you deal with, as well as the music. Now, I'm not saying it isn't at the school. It's at ANU. It's not in a bad way at all. But I'm not saying it's a bureaucracy. It's actually anti-bureaucracy. It's more about how can we make this better. Yeah. In fact, they've built a $1 million recording facility there, as well as to make it better for the students to use as another instrument. That's what it is. Yeah. An instrument, and that's what we you know, in the lectures I've been. It's about using recording studio as an instrument.
I'm one of my things with what I'm doing, which is on a small scale, but hopefully I want to grow this thing, and my passion is how do we help kids go from the learning to earning stage? Because there's so much theory that you have access to. There's tutorials, there's the internet, and that's beautiful. And you could have the greatest hearing in the world and be technically very au fait, but you know, as I've learned, and over in America, the great lessons I learned was about fostering relationships and about having personal empathy and then musical empathy. And some of these things you can't really teach. It's hard to teach.
Well, I think isn't it? It is hard, but
you can only kind of just be an example to someone, and maybe it rubs off on them.
That's all you can do, and it's not going to work every time, and not everyone's. But it's how bad, as I said earlier on, the learn to earn stage. It's how bad you want to do it. You know, the learn to earn stage for me didn't really. I wasn't aware of stages. You know, I was just aware of wanting to do it, finding a way of doing it, getting involved, knocking on doors till I got the right job, and then met the right people, then took opportunities when they were put in front of me. It's very important to know when an opportunity is put in front of you. It's very important to have the guts to take an opportunity. It's not as easy as it sounds. Yeah. You know, it might sound like great, but sometimes you go, oh shit, I'm biting off more than I can chew. You know, my advice to anyone is bite off just a little bit more than you can chew. Yeah, always.
One of the other biggest challenges that kids always come to me with is when they're starting out, obviously they're going to do some stuff for free. Is like, how do they determine what their worth is, and where do they set their
that is hard. I mean, I'm like that. You know, it got to a point in the 80s and 90s where I used to think of a number and double it. Yeah. You know, and because you got no idea of how much you're worth, and you know, like all through my career, it was a case of, I hope that was good enough. Am I doing a good enough job? Yeah. And I'm very conscious of, I hope that's okay. And I never got to a point where I was totally overconfident. I'm very confident in the people I work with. Yeah. And some of the people I like, my engineers and stuff like that, I know that with a Tony Wall or with Colin Wynn, it's part of my team that I can take on any project. Yeah. Any project in the world I can take on. Yeah. So I'm confident in that way. But it's still, you've got to, preparation equals confidence. Yeah. It's how much you prepare yourself, not just in musicology or technical stuff, but mentally, physically, everything. Preparation equals confidence.
Yeah. You still find that, okay, a guy like yourself with the accolades and your history and all that, which has a certain worth, it's a bit like almost a designer label thing. People are buying into a brand.
Wish it had more worth.
Yeah. Seriously. So, I mean, you don't strike me as a guy that sits on his laurels and just goes on the glories of the past. But do you find that today it's still more competitive for you, or do you think is it easier for you? Is it harder for you? Is it no different than what it was?
Well, the thing is, most people automatically assume because you've had all these hits, you're a multi-millionaire. You know? Yeah. No, it's not true. Yeah. You know, not every band pays royalties that they're supposed to pay. You know, and as a single entity, you can't go up against these major companies and expect to win sometimes to get these what you're perceived to be owed. Yeah. But it's still the competitiveness is there, but as I said, for me it's different. You know, I find these days a lot of bad dreams. They'll seek me out. A lot of young bands will seek me out because of what I have done in the past. Yeah. And similarly, you know, internationally, people will seek me out because what I've done, international stuff that I've done in stuff. So it's a little different for me, but it's certainly. You know, like none of us can really afford to stop working, I don't think. So it's
Well, I like living by the adage of I'd rather live richly than just be rich.
Oh no, look, I'd love. Look, I want to live in the manner I've become accustomed to. So it does require that I do work, but what has changed is that you don't feel like doing exactly the same kind of work. You want to take it to another level, in a different way, and look outside the square. In how can I use what my experience in a different way and still earn money. Because you have to, and that's the way our society is built. And so so you can go on holidays, so you can feed yourself, so you can take your wife out to dinner, so you can give your kids presents, so you can give yourself a lift, and stuff like that. I'm not talking about zillions of dollars, where you become just entrapped by money, but you've got to have enough money to live in the manner you're accustomed to.
Yeah.
So that's what it's. How you can convert that. It's not as easy as it sounds.
Yeah. I always thought that the whole idea of making it's interesting how people talk about this concept of making it, and I don't think there ever is a point where you ever make it. Do you?
You only realise that when you've had a few successes and you go, hang on, I should have made it by now. But that doesn't really exist, does it? Making it. You realise it doesn't exist after. When you've done nothing, it exists. When you have done something, you realise it doesn't exist. But it's still good to have that carrot there when you're a shit kicker and you haven't done anything. By making it means, just getting better and doing a better job and working with this person or that song. Then I know I'm on my way, or then I know I'm making it. So it's a process of making it rather than made it.
Yeah,
you're always making.
I think you're constantly in. I think for me, so long as you're doing it, even if you, I tell kids all the time, you don't wait until a certain point to say I've got there.
Yeah.
So long as you're in there doing it, you can still have a job and still be at home, because that's how I built my business. I just did part-time jobs over a 21-year period where my income came from the external source while I built the business. 21 years. It doesn't have to be that long for everyone, but I think so long as you're in the game you're doing it, then you have the way I define it. Made it.
Made it in the state of mind you've got. It's about really being happy with yourself and where you are in life, isn't it?
Yeah.
And so that's really what making it is being satisfied in where you are in life. And maybe you only live one time, so and you can't use every second of that time trying to do the best you can. No one can.
Yeah.
But just most people just got to remember you only live once. How hard is it to get on the planet in the first place? It's bloody incredibly hard to get on the planet.
Yeah, 14 billion to 1 or some ridiculous odds like that.
It's massive just to get onto the planet.
But don't think about that shit, do we?
And then get, I do, and to be as lucky as we are and be in a place like this, every now and again, and that should inspire people to go, not just to be happy with their lot, but inspire them to, if I want to be Rupert Murdoch, I'll be Rupert Murdoch. If I want to be that rich, if I want to be a movie star, I'm just going to learn to act, and I'll work in any restaurant that'll have me as a waiter or a waitress until I break through. You know what I mean? You'll do anything to fulfill your dream. Doesn't matter what you have to go through to get it.
Yeah.
What ring of fire you have to jump through, or what shitty job you have to do.
Yeah.
You do it.
Yeah.
Because you're after that end result.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Yeah. Mark Opitz, we're going to wind it up here.
Well, it's been a pleasure.
Always a pleasure, mate. Always a pleasure, mate. No, thank you for coming down. It was a great conversation, my friend.
Thanks, mate.
It was absolutely brilliant. We'll have to get you in there next year. I want to do you came to I want to do some more Mastering Live panel events next year. So
yeah,
when you came, you were on the first one, and you're very popular because I'm not pissing your pocket, but you're a fucking national treasure, mate. And it's and again, it's interesting, when you. I'm sure you had as a kid, you had people that you looked up to, but again, sure. It's really interesting that here I am sitting here having a conversation with you, and I could pick up the phone and chat to you, and we could talk shit and whatever. And once upon a time, you were just a name, you were a credit on a record.
That's right.
Sleeve,
Well, see, for me, I've never been, it's never appeared to me like that. Other people have.
Exactly, it's the perception there, absolutely. But it's wonderful though when you do get to meet the people that you've admired, and they not only reach expectation, but they exceed expectations. So I guess that's what inspires me to think, okay, well, you don't know what people think of you, but you want to exceed people's expectations.
True, but someone recently asked me what I'd like on my tombstone.
Yeah.
And I said, well, he made a difference.
Well, that's a good one. Did you like Spike Milligan's?
What's that?
I told you I'll see.
Oh, that's it. Don't eat the fish.
Yeah. All right, mate. Thank you so much.
Again, thanks.
Absolute pleasure, mate. Thank you so much for coming in. All right, guys, we are Yes, go on. Give him a round of applause, you fuckers.
Thank you, everybody.
Yeah. live rental crew in here. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, Backline Project, for the great job. Sorry about the delay and how we got going. Thank you, Mark Opitz.
Did it get on there? Did
yeah, everything worked. And thanks to all you guys who are watching. As always, so please remember being nice to each other, but more importantly, being nice to yourselves. I love you, fuckers. Have a good night. We'll see you next week.
See ya.
All right, see ya.
Thanks again, man.
Anytime, buddy. It's fucking pleasure.